Hello, my people. Thanks for joining me tonight. It's good to see you again. I'm Mickey Lee with the Blackboard coming at you once again with education and empowerment for eternity. For those of you that this is your first time joining me on a YouTube video, typically the topics of my videos focus on politics and religion from a Black perspective. As I said a moment ago, I bring you information that's designed to educate you and empower you so that you're prepared for eternity. Tonight, what we're going to be speaking about, or what I'm going to be speaking about, is the Congressional Black Carcass. Not the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Carcass. Let's be real, we don't have a caucus. So let me set the stage a little bit more about what we're going to talk about by first talking about the definition of a caucus. The caucus, according to the dictionary, is a meeting of the members of a legislative body who are members of a particular political party to select candidates or decide policy. But the more germane meaning of the word caucus would be a group of people with shared concerns within a political party or larger organization. So the word caucus would make you think that the Black people there involved would be meeting together to set policies, to decide strategies, to develop tactics that would benefit the Black people they claim to represent. But we know from more than 40 years of the Black Carcass's existence that very little of what they have done has actually benefited the Black community, and certainly nothing that they have done in the last 10 to 20 years. Now, I want to also make sure that we're using the same definitions when you watch one of my videos. When I talk about Black people, in general, I mean American born and raised Black people, American born and raised descendants of slaves. So therefore, I do not mean African immigrants. They, by and large, do not have a slave narrative, and if they do, it is one that's based in Africa, so they wouldn't know anything about what we are going through. And in general, most of them don't care about what we're going through. Furthermore, they tend to align themselves with immigrants, and their caucuses or representatives are doing fine to provide them with the resources and so forth that they knew. They're doing just fine. I also generally do not mean Black Hispanics. Now, we all know, or those of us who are familiar with the history of the American slave trade or the slave trades in the Americas, will know that more than 90% or about 90%, 85, 90% of the Africans brought to the Americas were not brought to the United States, but instead the vast majority wound up in Brazil, and then you have lesser amounts that were dispersed throughout the Americas, the West Indies, and the Caribbean. So in general, when I'm speaking, I am talking about American born and raised Blacks. Now, that doesn't preclude anyone else from listening, of course. It doesn't preclude my concern or interest in other Black groups, but it means that first and foremost, I'm talking about the ethnic group that I know best and of which I am a part, that's American born and raised Blacks. So now that you understand those couple of definitions, we can move on with the purpose of this particular YouTube video. So you heard me call them the Congressional Black Carcass. Why? Because a carcass is a dead body, right? And when you have a dead body, the dead body can't do anything. It's no threat to anybody. The only thing it is food for the worms and for the vultures. Okay, but it certainly is not, it doesn't protect anybody. It doesn't benefit anybody, any living body, other than, those types of birds and animals that feed off of a carcass. And it's absolutely no threat. And what we have is a non-threatening, non-effective group of Black folks who are in the legislative body of the United States government. And instead of them protecting us and benefiting us, they are in fact serving us up for dinner. And that's what they've been doing for a couple of decades. There's a saying I heard on Yvette Carnell's show. If you're not familiar with Yvette Carnell, she's with Breaking Brown. And a caller called in one time and he said, Black folks, I want you to understand something. If you are not on the, if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. And thanks to the Congressional Black Caucus, we are on the menu, big time. Now, the average age, there are 49 members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and the average age is close to 70 years old. That's another reason why I refer to them as a carcass. But it's not because they're 70, because my mom's 70. I have aunts and uncles and cousins, older cousins that are 70 plus years old. I have good friends that are 70. So it's not because they're 70. It's because they're 70 and they have no wisdom to go along with it. It's because they're 70 and they have not adopted their strategies and tactics to the changing times to benefit their people. It's because they're 70 and they are relying on the history from 50 years ago that most of them weren't even involved in. And for the few that were involved in that history 50 years ago, it has been 50 years since they did anything of note for Black folks. Furthermore, most of the members of this Congressional Black Caucus and some of the most notable members of that group that you've heard about a lot are people like Barbara Lee from California, people like Maxine Waters from California as well. You've heard of Cory Booker from New Jersey. You've heard of Eleanor Norton Holmes, I believe is her name, Eleanor Holmes Norton or Eleanor Norton Holmes. Elijah Cummings out of Georgia. John Lewis out of Georgia. Elijah Cummings out of Baltimore, I believe it is, or Maryland. You've heard of these folks. They're the most notable ones. They're the most vocal ones. And they're also the most backward ones, in my opinion. So those are the reasons why I refer to it as the Congressional Black Caucus. They're dead and they need to be removed like you do any other dead body. They need to be removed and replaced. But why am I talking about them now? Well, the President of the United States, Donald John Trump, again, whom I very strongly support, has agreed to take a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus. Now, I don't think that's a good idea, and most Black intellectuals with any good sense, they don't think it's a good idea either, because the Congressional Black Caucus has done nothing for Black people but block. And there's plenty of documentation out there, but if you don't believe me, just look at their stances on immigration. First of all, we know that immigration, both legal and illegal, by the way, and if it were up to me, Mickey Lee, if it were up to me, all immigration would stop tonight. And it wouldn't just stop for 60 days or 90 days or 120 days. It would stop for at least a decade. I'll be doing other videos on that, but very quickly, the reason why is, number one, we cannot sustain this number of people ecologically. There are plenty of reports out there that prove this. They've been saying this for the last 30 years. You can look it up. And you will see that. And as a result of the growing population, forced population growth here in the United States, we will be facing food shortages and water shortages, very life-threatening situation, probably within the next 5-6 years. So that's number one. We can't afford it ecologically. Number two, we cannot afford it monetarily. This country is broke. Okay, we keep printing up money, but that doesn't mean we have money. The country is broke. And the country is $20 trillion in debt. That means in order for us to wipe the slate clean, every man, woman, and child would have to repay, I believe the figure is something like $50,000 to $60,000 a piece. Every man, woman, and child would have to pay that right now. Okay, so we can't even afford it financially. Okay, the third reason why we can't afford it is we can't afford it culturally. We have now allowed people to come into this country for the last 3 or 4 decades. They don't have to speak English. They don't have to assimilate. They don't have to even wave an American flag. Yet they get jobs. Yet they get housing. clothing, education, free healthcare, etc., etc., and the rest of us sit by like ninnies and let this happen. So we can't afford it culturally either, because of the fact of the way it's being done. Even if we could afford it financially, even if we could afford it ecologically, the presence of all these various people under the guise of diversity, who do not have to be Americans, and again, don't have to speak English, they don't even have to come with a skill. Okay, they don't even have to come with a skill. All of that is eroding the national cohesiveness, such as it was, and eroding the fibers that make us Americans. So those are the top 3 reasons why, if it were up to me, all immigration, both legal and illegal, would stop tonight. Okay. But if you, back to the subject of the Congressional Black Caucus, if you look at the way that they vote, they have been voting in favor of supporting both legal and illegal immigration. Now, illegal immigration brings in cheap labor, cheap initially. Now I'm going to do another, you'd have to watch another video for me to unravel this whole immigration thing and try to retrain your mind that these folks that you think of as victims are in fact not. Because one of the things that they have done that we have failed to do is they have learned who their enemy is, and they have learned how to manipulate that enemy to get what they want. So these Latinos running around, these Somalians, Eritreans, Ethiopians, Syrians, and so forth and so on. First of all, take a quick look. You don't see no starving people among them. I don't see no starving people. Okay. So for people who are so war-torn and so persecuted and are coming from such heinous situations, you would think a few of these folks would be a skeleton bear. But I don't see any of them. What I see are people running around, look like they're have a lot of health to me. They're running around in the latest clothes. They're running around in the latest cars. They got the latest phones. They're buying up property. They are turning out at town hall meetings and saying what they will and will not do. Some of them are trying to implement Sharia law. Those don't seem like war-torn, traumatic people to me. They're also not cheap labor. Okay, but again, just to close that thread, the reason they're not cheap labor is because while they cost the company very little, the company can get away with paying them $10, $12, $13 an hour for a $30 an hour job, etc. The rest of us, taxpayers, have been subsidizing these folks for decades. In the state of California, subsidies to illegal immigrants alone, subsidies to illegal immigrants, that doesn't count refugee programs, it doesn't count amnesty programs, it doesn't count humanitarian efforts, okay? Just illegals alone is more than 25 billion with a B. $25 billion in the state of California alone. Okay, so nationwide, that's hundreds of billions of dollars just for illegals. And again, it doesn't count the refugee programs, amnesty programs, humanitarian programs, and visa programs that allow people to come in legally. This is just on illegals. Okay. It also brings in unskilled, non-educated, or low-educated folk. Who are they competing with for those jobs? Primarily black males. Okay? Primarily black males. So when they come in, when they're allowed to come in, and when you have the Congressional Black Caucus, who claims to be so sanctimonious, okay, and they're inclusive and they understand and they're so empathetic, you're letting in a bunch of people who are competing straight on with black males, okay? And as a result of these folks being given the jobs over black males, and it's primarily black males that do that, because the education gap between black males and black females is also large, and that's another video. That black girls get their butts up, they go on about their business, they get to school, and they make something of themselves so that they're competing on a professional scale, not a blue collar scale. Okay, not a low skill area. Okay, where most black males are. Okay, now you can try to post some ugly comment if you want to. These are the facts. Okay, I'm not being emotional about it. I'm not making some judgment about it. I'm stating facts. Okay, the Congressional Black Caucus, by supporting this, has taken away jobs that rob black men of the males. Okay, because you're not going to hear me use men a whole lot unless that term is deserved. But in any event, that robs black males of the opportunity to earn money to support their families. Okay. Furthermore, you have not heard the Congressional Black Caucus uh, uh, talk about amnesty programs, humanitarian programs, sanctuary cities, refugee programs, or anything else for black people. Okay. If it, by any definition of any of those programs, they should have leveraged the existence of those programs and demanded that the same programs be developed solely for American-born black people, descendants of slaves. That's what should have happened, but they didn't. But here's their latest travesty against us black folks. The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, has agreed to take a meeting with these folks. Okay. Most of these folks refused to attend the inauguration like a bunch of jackasses. Then they turned around when the president gave his first joint State of the Union address, joint congressional address. They dressed in white and sat down, did not clap, okay, did not show the President of the United States the respect due that office. I don't care what you think about the man. It's the respect due that office. Okay, so then again, like a bunch of jackasses, they sat down on the job, and that's all they've been doing for the last 40 years is sitting down on the job. Okay, now a black reporter, April Ryan, I believe her name is, orchestrated after she rudely demanded a meeting with President Trump, who was already planning, who had already met with more black-led organizations or black-focused, pro-black organizations before he even became president than Obama did in all 8 years of his presidency, and who had already stated his intention to implement a new deal for black people. He already did this, okay? This reporter, in my opinion, acted an ass with the press secretary, Sean Spicer. Okay, be that as it may, President of the United States generally agrees, generously agrees to a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus. Now, instead of these folks getting together and having listening sessions in their districts and saying, what would you like us to ask the president to do for black people? They're going to tweet out, we're going to tell him how we're going to lose. Now, this meeting is going to happen tomorrow. Today is Tuesday, March the 21st, so the meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. Instead of them rapidly getting together with their constituents and having listening sessions throughout their districts and saying, what is it that you would like for us to ask the President of the United States to do for you? And then getting together as a caucus and outlining maybe the top 10 things that people have suggested that they want to see the President of the United States do. They're going to tweet out, we're going to tell him what we stand to lose. Okay, repeating back, referring back to President Trump's oft-asked question of black people, American blacks, what do you have to lose? Okay. So this tells me the carcass, the dead body, is not prepared for this meeting. Black folks, you need to wake up quick, fast, and in a hurry. Because before I give you what the Black Caucus should be saying tomorrow at the meeting, let me take you back a few days ago to another major meeting that you need to be aware of and you need to look up. On last Thursday or Friday, could have been Wednesday, somewhere between last Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, the 15th, 16th, or 17th, the Latino Coalition met with not the President of the United States. He has not taken that audience. He has reserved his audience for the Black community. The Latino Coalition met with the Vice President. Okay? And you know what the Latino Coalition did? They presented the Vice President with the platform that they want for their community. Now, mind you, during the election last year, the 2016 election, President Trump very correctly pointed out that Mexico was busy dumping their unwanted people in the United States, and that this group of unwanted people included murderers, rapists, criminals, and drug dealers. Absolutely, it included people of that ilk. Okay? His speech further went on to say that, hey, in general, he had no problem with Mexicans. He understood why they were doing what they were doing because they could. But if he won, he was going to put a stop to it. Okay? The Congressional Black Caucus, even though the president didn't say anything about Black people, they got more irate about it than the Latinos did. You know what the Latinos have said? This is the man with the money. This is the man with the power. We're going to meet with the man with the money. We're going to meet with the man with the power. And we're going to tell him what it is that we want him to do for Latinos. Okay. That's what we're going to do. I want you to go on their website, www.latinocoalition.com. It's either thelatinocoalition.com or latinocoalition.com. It's a nice website. Okay, they present Vice President Pence's remarks. Okay, including the fact that for those of you who insist on thinking the Latino community is a poor victim-filled community, they're the fastest growing segment of businesses. 3 to 4 million businesses in the United States are owned by Hispanics. Now, I can tell you how that happened, and it's not all due to their hard work, as we're led to believe, but because they have advocates on every level, from your town hall meeting, from your classroom, or your PTA meeting, all the way up to the top. They have advocates, and most of their advocates aren't even Latino, let alone immigrants. Okay? That'll be another show that I'll dissect it further because this is getting a little bit long, but I want to point that out. They're not the victims that you think they are. What they are is great at playing the game. Okay? They understand how the dominant culture views them. They flip the script to use that weakness against the dominant culture, and they're winning. But I digress. They weren't even granted a meeting with the president. They were granted a meeting with the vice president. They came to win, and they're slain. Okay? Back to the Congressional Black Caucus. We don't even know if most of these people are going to show up tomorrow. People like Maxine Waters, people like Barbara Lee, who are calling for the impeachment of the president. Okay? People like Elijah Cummings, people like John Lewis talking about he can't work with the president. Okay? We don't even know if half these people will show up. Black folks, wake up quick, fast, in a hurry. There is no reason why these people should be representing us. And there are other people who told President Trump, please don't take this meeting. Please don't take it. It's a waste of time. They don't represent the average Black man and woman. Okay? But he graciously agreed to take this meeting. Okay? That's why I'm talking about this tonight. Whenever you see this, I want you to share this video. I want you to look up the links that I have referenced. And I want you also in the comments section to add to the list of things that the Congressional Black Caucus should be asking for. All right. Since the Congressional Black Caucus is probably not prepared for this meeting, and they may not see this video, unfortunately, I'm just doing it the night before. Here are some things that I would strongly suggest the caucus talk about. Before I get to that list, I'm sorry, I want to say a few things about what they better not do tomorrow. Okay? Dear Congressional Black Caucus members, when you are in audience with the President of the United States and you are there to represent American-born blacks, descendants of slaves, this is what you'd better not do. Do not be disrespectful to the President of the United States. Whatever the proper protocol is for standing, sitting, clapping, etc., you better do it. Okay? Number 2, do not talk about Muslims or immigrants. You represent the American-born descendants of slaves. The vast majority of us, more than 85%, are not immigrants. The vast majority of us, nearly 90%, identify as Christian. We do not want you talking about Muslims or immigrants. We also do not want you talking about black and brown. There is no such people as black and brown. We are black people. Okay? Black people. American born and bred, American born and raised, descendants of slaves, black people. The brown people, be they the Latino, be they the Asian, whether that's from the South Asia or from India, be they the Syrian from the Middle East, okay? All those people, they got their own carcasses, they got their own advocates, and they're doing just fine. They're receiving resources. Do not dilute our moment by bringing in these people who have nothing to do with us, and furthermore, do not share their resources and political power with us. Okay? So those are the 3 things you better not do tomorrow. You better not be disrespectful. You better not talk about Muslims and immigrants. You better not talk about black and brown. Okay. Now, here are the things that you should be talking about. President Trump, what can you do for the black community? Here's a number of things. Number 1, you can reverse Bill Clinton's 3 strikes legislation. Number 1, reverse Bill Clinton's 3 strikes legislation. That legislation alone put almost 2 million black men in jail. Almost 2 million black men in jail, and that means it divided up and destroyed or brought close to destruction nearly 2 million families. That means it took 2 million potential breadwinners out of the black community. That means it took nearly 2 million potential voters out of the black community. The first thing you can do is reverse Bill Clinton's 3 strikes legislation. Quick, fast, in a hurry, whatever help you need from us, we're going to do it. That's number 1. Number 2. Where's my number 2? Okay. We want and need new housing built in black communities. We want and need new housing built in black communities, but we want it built by black people. We want the new housing in the black communities built by black people. So that means funneling money to these trades organizations and trades training groups that are in the black community in construction, plumbing, etc., vocational training. Put black youth and young adults in that training, and regular adults that don't have a job. Put them in that training, funnel money for that, and we want the housing in black neighborhoods, the renovation of housing that exists, the rebuilding of housing that exists. We want it done by black people. We don't want no foreigners. We don't want no foreigners in the black neighborhoods building housing for other people. We want that done by us. Okay? We want new schools in our neighborhood. Brand new schools in our neighborhood staffed by black people, okay? Black professionals. We want new schools in our neighborhood built by Black people and staffed by Black people. So that means we need a part of the educational budget to be specifically earmarked for Black people, Black neighborhoods, and Black schools. Okay? And that means stipends for professional development for Black teachers, so that all across the board, teachers in general, whatever ilk they come from, they should receive a raise, but Black teachers should receive a stipend specifically to guarantee their ongoing professional development for the next 5 years, okay, at least. All right. The next thing that we want, since you have sanctuary cities and amnesty programs, humanitarian efforts, and refugee programs, we want you to leverage that legislation to earmark money specifically for Black people. And one of the first things we want you to do is declare sanctuary inmates. Sanctuary inmates. And what do we mean by sanctuary inmates? We mean inmates that are in county and state jails and incarcerated facilities for non-violent crimes. So they are in jail because they stole a nickel bag. They are in jail because they stole something. Now, is this to diminish crime? No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Okay? It's not to diminish or to condone crime, right? But if we can come up with billions and billions and billions of dollars for illegal alien criminals, okay, illegal aliens are criminals by the fact that they enter the country illegally in the first place, and then they go on to commit additional crimes, okay? If we can come up with sanctuary cities and all this amnesty programs, all of this kind of stuff, then please leverage that legislation to come up with these programs specifically for Black people, and start with sanctuary inmates. When you do sanctuary inmates, you will release all the Black men and women who are in jail for nonviolent crimes. That's the first tier. The second tier are all the Black men and women who are in jail for women is what I'm thinking of in particular, that are in jail for defending their life in a domestic violence situation. So if it's a domestic violence situation and a person was clearly defending their life, let them out of jail as well. Okay? Now, once you let them out of jail, their record should be entirely expunged. They should disappear from the face of the earth. They should never be brought up again. And then those people should be funneled into some of these jobs that you're bringing back. Okay? So that's what we need for Black folks. Sanctuary inmates and then sanctuary jobs. These are jobs only for and specifically for Black people. And I recommend at least 25% of all the jobs that you're bringing back, Border Patrol, ICE, manufacturing jobs, whatever kind of job it is, 25%. When you talk to your friends in the corporate America who are coming up with jobs and bringing back these companies, tell them that you will use your executive powers to give them certain tax breaks or however it best works, but they need to allocate in earmark 25% of these jobs for Black people. Again, that's American born and bred descendants of slaves, American Black people. Okay? All right. What's the next one? I mentioned it, but let me go back to it. All the jobs that you're bringing back, 25% of those jobs, we want those earmarked for Black people. 25% earmarked for Black people. Okay? What's the next one? Then we want 20% of the government contracts. We know that the government tries to help small business, and we're behind that. Government tries to help small business by earmarking government contracts, lucrative contracts. We want 20% of those earmarked for Black businesses. And once again, the definition of Black is American born and bred. American born and bred descendants of slaves, Black people, not immigrants, okay? Black people. We want those jobs. I'm sorry, we want 20% of government contracts earmarked and allocated to Black-owned businesses, okay? Then I learned from Yvette Carnell's show, Breaking Brown, that there was something about some media, that the government spends X number of dollars per year on public relations and on media externally from the White House machine. We want 20% of those dollars to be given to Black media, okay? 20% of those dollars given to Black media. All right. I think I had one or two more. Okay. And then we want more thorough vetting and training of law enforcement. Once again, we want more thorough vetting and training of law enforcement, Mr. President, because you see, law enforcement in the Black community, pretty much since the beginning of this nation's founding, has been used as the executionary arm of the judicial system against Black people. So this isn't about Black folks running around being disrespectful of the police and Black people instigating situations with the police, which is what white America has led themselves to believe. White America and the rest of America, because that includes the Asians, the Hispanics, everybody else, okay? No, this is documented for hundreds and hundreds of years of the cops going into Black communities at will and killing people, making people disappear, locking people up for no good reason. In fact, if you just studied the history of Angola State Prison in the state of Louisiana, you would find out that most of their plantation help came from them making up laws and arresting Black people illegally and then forcing them to work on those plantations. And then by the time that anything was done on behalf of those Black men, they were dead in the prison. Okay, so this isn't a figment of our imagination. This is the fact that the police, the law enforcement in general, has been the executionary arm, the arm of genocidal intention against Black people and Black communities. So we want more thorough vetting. And I also have to say, just hiring Black cops is not going to do it, because a number of us, including myself, have been handcuffed or harassed by Black cops without any legal reason for that whatsoever. So just hiring Black cops is not going to do it. Okay, but we need more thorough vetting and training of law enforcement officers, and they need to be taught that they are expected to be respectful of the communities that they serve. If they want to be respected, they need to be respectful. So although we are a law and order people, and we agree with your interest in returning law and order to the country, we are very concerned about some of the ways that you state this, because you see, the police has systematically been used to murder our people. And so far, for the vast majority of crimes against Black people, they have gone unpunished, at least in this life. They won't get away before God, but in any event. So, Mr. President, we need you to understand that we can stand behind you with bringing law and order back to the cities, right, and back to America, law and order, but only if you promise and enact strategies to ensure much better training of police. I understand that average police cadet is maybe trained for 3 months at the most, okay, and maybe not even that long, okay, and that it is based on a real commitment to serving the community, not slaying the community. So that's what we need. Let's see. I think this is my list. I think I've gone through my entire list, Black folks. So if I were in charge of the Congressional Black Caucus, that's what I would be telling them tomorrow. What would you tell them? Please comment in the comment portion. Let me know what else you think we should be telling them, because you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to gather up all these comments and I'm going to email them to the Congressional Black Caucus. And I'm also going to call you to action right now. We're going to see what the Congressional Black Caucus, if they actually will rise like a phoenix and put some life into their dead body and actually act like they have some sense. I'm not holding my breath. Once we see what they did, I'm calling you to action, Black folks. We don't have any more time to sit on the sidelines and talk about, woe is this and that and all that. We need to be about it. We need to get rid of the dead weight that is taking our community down, be they politicians, be they, some of the folks, brothers and sisters on the block, okay? We need to get rid of the dead weight, okay? Now, let me be clear. It was brothers and sisters on the block who formed the Black Panthers. So I'm not saying because you're in a certain social economic class that you don't have any power. In fact, I'm saying that you are where the new power base needs to come from. I'm talking about people who are not Black focused, not Black centric, who are, smoking weed all day and playing games all day. That's not going to help us. Or conversely, folks who are in their professional jobs and think that they've made it. No, we all need to be soldiers. Okay, we all need to be soldiers, and we need to control these these bodies. Okay, these bodies like the Congressional Black Caucus who think they speak for us. We need to put our words in their mouths, and if they will not speak those words, we need to get rid of them. We need to get rid of them. Vote their asses out. That needs to be our mantra. Just like President Trump went around the circus and the lie that is the mainstream media, and he's using Twitter, he's using Facebook, Instagram, all other types of alternative communication devices to get his message out to the American people. We need to go around these blockers so we can get our blessing. Okay, we need to go around these blockers and get our blessing. What does that look like? It means calling the White House. This is the most interactive president that anybody has ever seen. Okay, call the White House. Say you're a Black man and you're in whatever state and you're looking for a job. Okay, say that you are a Black woman with X number of kids and talk about how difficult it is for you to either get health care for them or for you to get a job or whatever your needs are. Say you're a Black professional and that you support Donald Trump, but you're worried about him empowering the cops in your neighborhood. Call him, tweet him, Facebook him, Instagram him. But do not act like the Congressional Black Caucus and lay down dead and then bitch and moan because you didn't get what you needed. Okay? This is Mickey Lee with the BLACKboard signing off. Love you, my people.